Every October since 2011, Retro Movie Geek has brought you the spooky side of retro movies. And this year is no different. So, a haunting we will go, as we dig up classic tales of ghosts and hauntings that are 20 years old or older. But remember, we spoil the hell out of every movie we cover. So consider yourself forewarned. Spooky Flix Fest starts now.
Welcome to a bonus episode. This is our last TV bonus episode, right, Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I am Gilman Joel. I can do it this way. Yeah, I am joined by Pumpkinhead Peter and Allyson, the horror unicorn, and Huw from the Undead Wiki. Look at us,
Wookie,
Wow.
not Wiki.
the Undead
Take it.
Wiki.
Call me anything.
Wiki.
Wiki Wild.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, and Joel, see?
Yes. What?
The
See
T-shirt.
What about it? Oh, you're wearing the C&D. Keep on, you do freeze, so if you stood up, I couldn't tell. There you go. Okay, I see it now. All I saw was the top of the C&D. So anyone who's listening to this, the 4 millionth reminder, there's a video version of this episode over on Mom and Pop Video Shop on the YouTubes. You could see Allyson's wonderful visage, Hugh's wonderful visage, and Peter and me. So we are here, and we are covering The Crowd from Ray Bradbury Theater. This is the third of our TV bonus episodes for Spooky Flix Fest. One of our last bonus episodes, I do believe, right, Peter? I think this is, I don't know if it's the last, but it's one of the last.
Yeah, one of the last, anyway. Yeah.
So, we are doing The Crowd from 1985. Peter, do you have a synopsis?
I do, and let's see. This particular episode was from season 1, episode 3, and it was released on July 2nd in 1985. And there is a short synopsis here. I think it's a sentence or two. A car crash survivor discovers that the same sinister, mysterious crowd of onlookers somehow always shows up minutes after any potentially fatal car accident at the site of the crash. Short and
and not spoilery, which is nice. I want to say right off the bat. So I don't know, Allyson and Huw, you may not know this, but Peter and I definitely do, because we've had to endure them with our guests. Although I will say one of them wasn't horrible. We've covered from the Ghost Story, aka Circle of Fear, the one with Jason Robards, which I keep forgetting the title of it. It's The Dead
We Leave Behind.
That's right, which is a great title. I love that title. And it wasn't a bad episode. It was fine. No. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine. Then we did Hammer's House of Horror, the house that bled to death, which, other than like literally 2 visual moments, although I you'll be very happy, Huw, I actually used it as an opportunity to talk about hauntology a little bit.
Oh, perfect.
And even my little opening that Peter wanted you to watch, I tried to find clips that had a little bit of a hauntological aspect to them. So I
was very impressed. It's got that wonderful psychogeography feel to it as well. It's nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And so this episode, though, The Crowd. So I've always enjoyed me some Ray Bradbury. He's a fantastic author. Prolific and brilliant. Right off the bat, and then I'm going to throw it to each of you. I much preferred Peter, even though the intro to this was very simplistic, walking through his den, his office, whatever, and
I've
seeing.
Always enjoyed that, because they showed the Ray Bradbury Theater over here. I think it's either one of the Swedish channels, or one of the Danish channels, but I've seen a bunch of this.
And I thought I had seen at least a couple, but I didn't remember that intro at all. So maybe I haven't.
Okay.
So Allyson, I'm assuming you've seen some Ray Bradbury Theater before.
I have, yeah. I hadn't seen this episode, but I've seen some of it.
Okay. All right, cool. So the intro for you, I mean, it's nothing extravagant by any means.
So I don't know. I didn't give it too much thought the first time I saw it, but which was probably over a decade ago. But then I watched Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place. There's kind of like a little bit of a similar vibe in the spoof of like the author telling you about like where he gets his inspiration from.
Oh,
and here's
okay.
his cluttered office. And
So you kind of went in.
Kind of makes me chuckle now.
It was sort of like when we covered The Ring, which technically that episode hasn't come out yet, so I don't want to give too much away. But the real, because was it Scary Movie 2 has the similar opening, so now rewatching The Ring, the opening kind of doesn't work the same way. But that being said, Hugh, for you, do you enjoy the opening at least of this particular?
Do you know what? We didn't really get Ray Bradbury Theater in the UK, so it's something that I've sort of trying to catch up with much later on. So I hadn't actually seen this episode, and I certainly hadn't seen that introduction, but I loved it because it has that really nostalgic, cheap 80s feel to the television. Do you know what I mean? That sort of you knew exactly. It was like it's like a warm blanket, isn't it? When you get that sort of great nostalgic, so then you think, this was made for about £3.50 at a packet of cigarettes. It was, it's sort of there's something quite comforting about it, and that voiceover was And now you said Garth Marenghi. All I can just think of is Matt Berry now. I could just imagine him sort of, just sort of, welcome. That kind of sort of
oh my God. By the way, you'll be proud. Literally 2 days ago on my Instagram feed, clips of Matt Berry, and I feel bad that I don't know exactly what it's from, but it's basically him approaching all of these pretty young ladies and offering to be a gentleman to them. And every time they say, "I have a boyfriend," he's F off. And
it's from the. I think it's from the IT crowd. If you haven't seen
love the IT. I've seen. I love that show. I haven't watched it in years, but I love it. That was a great show.
Just phenomenal.
Matt Berry to me is like perfection. I love that guy. Anyway, all that being said, I did like the opening of this. Did anybody catch what I thought was clever is very subtle references that he made to other very classic stories. He says somewhere in here is the African veldt, which the veldt is one of his favorite. And what was the other one he said? Brain Friday.
Martian landscape.
Yeah, the Martian landscape. And there was, I think, but I like that he just very subtly, it's like if you're paying attention, kids, which is going to get me to the point about this episode. I'm going to lay it out on the table right now. Absolutely loved this. I thought it was well written. I thought it was well performed. Maybe it's because we just came off of that Hammer House of Horrors one, Peter. But by comparison, just the respect with which he treats his audience, because this was written by Bradbury based on one of his short stories, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So Peter, I just realized I didn't ask you. Did you like the opening?
Well, I think I just said that I've always enjoyed the opening.
Okay, maybe you did.
I have seen a couple of them. So,
I'd shocker to learn I wasn't really listening.
I'm used to that.
I know.
Yeah, based on an original story by.
Yes. Well, and I found on YouTube in my recommendations when I was watching the episode, somebody uploaded an audiobook version of the original short story. So when I have the time, I'm going to listen to it. But right off the bat, what I love the most about this episode is how it's written, is the fact that there's a mystery to it all, but it's never confusing. There's never the moment where the characters have to do some expositional dump because, the dumb audience isn't going to get this. They don't explain everything, but yet it all makes sense in the end. And at the same time, it all is done in such a way that it leaves you. I feel like this is one of those episodes where I want to see it a couple more times because I feel like there's a deeper level to it, but it requires you to think about it, and it doesn't just serve it up to you on a platter. Hugh, do you agree with any of the dumb crap that just came out of my face?
Do you know what? It's a really well written episode, and I think sometimes we see like the cheesy opening kind of moments. But then you realize that there's some real craft in this, and it's very well written. It's really well shot. It's really well lit as well, which is something that.
Okay. He'll come back. I'm sure he'll come back. Go ahead. Keep going with your point.
It's really well written. It's really well directed. It's really well lit. And in terms of the performances, because I think, television still run about this time could get a bit hammy, to say the least. They could be particularly sort of, when you look at, and as much as I love like the Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone episodes, and when they revive some of these shows, they still got a little bit cheesy. You know, there's some great episodes in there, but at least this managed to keep this sort of this level of this level of suspense and mystery running throughout it, but also with a really nice hint of dread. Sounds like the worst kind of pasta you could ever order, really. Just a wonderful hint of dread to
Just a hint of dread.
just a touch, a soupçon. But it's sort of it and there's really subtle performances in it. You know, and I'd never seen it before, so I was sort of thinking, oh, well, what do we get? I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Now, on that note, hold on one second. Okay, so if you notice that we went from having Peter to not having Peter to Peter's back, yes, we had to pause the recording, and he is now back with us. So, I honestly, Huw, I know you were making a point that was very good and profound, but I don't know where to go.
I don't remember what it was,
but I don't exactly remember. So. High level, go ahead and just
so I mean, essentially what I was talking about is just how well crafted this episode is. I mean, and it's very very tight.
Yes, it
and
is.
Very well written, very well directed, very well lit as well, which is something of a bit of a rarity. I think particularly in television, because essentially you've got you get your 3-point light in, and boom, that's it. Set up, gone. But what you get here, you get lots of these lovely like neon lights in the play, and it's got a real 80s vibe to it. It's great.
I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you 100%. The camera movement, but it's never. It doesn't call attention to itself. You know what I mean? It's subtle. It's sort of a neutral style of filmmaking in that it's not flashy. But it's good storytelling. It's good visual storytelling. 100% agree with you. The other thing I noticed right off the bat on the credits is this was produced by HBO, right, Peter?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Allyson. So Allyson, did you know? Was it an HBO series? I didn't know that.
I think that it was, and I think that's actually probably why I didn't see it until later on, because when I was a kid, I watched the 90s revival of Outer Limits. In the 80s, I watched some of the Twilight Zone revival, and I mean, I kind of consumed all of that stuff that was available, but we didn't have HBO. And if we had, I would have probably sneak watched this because I would have been in elementary school when these episodes were airing, but I would have been interested because I liked spooky stuff even when I was really little.
Yeah. And I think one thing that jumped out at me, because we had HBO when I was really young and my parents were together, just like the late 70s, early 80s. And then I remember, I don't know if my dad kept it through the mid 80s, but then we got it. It definitely had it again late 80s into the 90s, because that was when Tales of the Crypt dropped. And I remember watching Dream On. And it's interesting to note, because I remember the one show, because my uncle had HBO, and it was The Hitchhiker. And I always remember thinking that was kind of a dirty show. Because I think it had like this sort of like erotic thriller vibes to it, if memory serves.
Silk stocking style.
Yeah, but it was HBO, so it was like naughty, and and so I knew I'd get in trouble if I watched it. But it's funny because HBO was obviously notorious for they were pushing the envelope. They were trying to stand out from network TV because they could get away with a lot more. But if this was an HBO series, now maybe other episodes are more extreme, but this is probably pushing the envelope for network TV as far as maybe gore goes. I mean, it wasn't gory, but they did show a little bit of blood, the accident footage, stuff like that. But there was no nudity. The language was, non-existent, basically. They didn't drop F-bombs or, they didn't even, do like PG level language. So I don't know if maybe it was originally a show. What was that, Peter?
You don't have to do all of that stuff with the gore and the nudity and the language, even though it's a cable show. You don't really have to.
You don't have to, but HBO is notorious for always doing that. What was that, Allyson?
I think one of the things that you got back then that was more of a standout was channels like HBO and Showtime and Cinemax were putting more money into their programming than network TV, in general.
It showed.
Or some of the cable channel stuff, So I think you're getting just better quality because, well, one, it's a Ray Bradbury and they're sourcing his material and he's an active participant in the show. So it's kind of like a forerunner of, then there was this later wave of all these really high budget, really great shows. Like you had things like Deadwood and Carnival, and, like all these people were blown away. They're like, oh, look at this. Like you can make television prestige again when it used to be like considered not as great.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The other thing I loved is that, and this is, I have a book, is it Zen and the Art of Writing? I think is the one that Ray Bradbury put out. I think that was his.
Yeah.
And I have it around here somewhere. I remember, I haven't read it in years, but I remember reading it. And basically it's fascinating in that his creative process, like he doesn't, if memory serves, he doesn't sit there and think about like, oh, what message am I trying to say? None of that. No, it's stream of consciousness. It's, I believe like what he said, I look around my office, right? And something kind of trips the switch and it's off to the races. And then I go off and create, these other worlds. And if you've ever read anything by him, especially something Wicked This Way Comes and books like that, though, like the language is so poetic and lyrical. It almost sometimes doesn't even make sense, but yet it makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just the language.
I've always
I've always felt that like the Bradbury's, not to the same kind of level. There's always a touch of Joyce, but a touch of Joyce to Bradbury's work, like you said about the sort of the almost poeticness to it, and the sort of not in that sort of in a similar vein that you do get the stream of consciousness, but not to the point where you're trying to read it and decipher exactly.
Yes, and not to the point with Joyce where it was like with me when I tried to read Ulysses in college just to be Mr. Fancy Pants. I made it like 10 pages in, and then I threw it across the room and said, "I'm out. Nope, not doing it. I can't do it." So Bradbury, I never did that with, for what it's worth. But the point is that what I love in this, and this is, so everyone had to think the same. I mean, maybe I'm assuming, maybe it's me. We get a guy, it's a ghost story. I knew that much going in since that's the theme for this year's Spooky Flix Fest, and Peter wouldn't have picked it, and it wasn't ghost related. Guy gets in a car accident at the beginning. What was everyone's knee-jerk assumption that it was going to end up happening? I know what mine was, which was he was dead the whole time, or something along the lines of that. You know what I mean? That it's going to be, that kind of thing. Yeah. Anybody else thought that?
Yeah, and immediately I thought, oh, here we go. He snuffed it. There we go.
Yeah.
And then we'll get the big sort of reveal at the end.
Yes. But what I love about this is that that's not what happened. That he gave him maybe like a second sight to see something. I love the implication that, death is always portrayed as like a Grim Reaper type figure, but always a single entity. And I loved that it's like this gradually growing blob or crowd. I mean, and by the way, so obviously,
and they also just kind of, they're just there.
Yes,
it takes a couple of seconds, and all of a sudden,
and it's not explained. It's not, and there's no moral judgment. Like, oh, are they in limbo? Or are they in hell? No, that's not what it is. It's just a different interpretation of what happens when you die violently in a crash. And by the way, anybody's listening to this, obviously a little late now, but obviously we've always said we spoil everything that we cover on the show. So I would advise, if you haven't seen this, go watch it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's hard to not spoil or talk about the ending with this is a short episode. It's 30 minutes long, so it's hard to not spoil anything.
Peter, would you agree? I don't think it even matters if you knew going in. No. That's why it's great writing.
Because it's interesting.
Yeah, Allyson, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think this story is really interesting, and I think it definitely left me feeling like they could have made it a longer episode and put more into it, and I would have been fine with that, because I had questions like, well, it seems like other people can see these people that show up as well. It's just that this guy was the subject of their interest after his accident, so he started to notice. But his friend could see them and was just like, it's just a bunch of people. It's not a big deal. And so that, I thought that was really interesting. It's like, well, they're visible to everybody. Also, I was just background kind of curious, like, what does this guy do for a living? Like, he's clearly some kind of artist, maybe working with neon or something. Like, his studio was really fascinating to me. And I was just like, I'd kind of like to know a little bit more. And also wondering about his friend and thinking about, well, like, there could have even been a little bit more background investigation into what's going on, which I feel like would have been fun, because I was getting into it. I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And it wraps up really quickly. And I do feel like the ending kind of went in a direction where I thought it was going to. Like, you knew that like something bad was going to come from poking at this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, but it wasn't like so predictable. Like you were saying at the beginning, oh, you thought he is dead, and then everything that happens after this is him dealing with being dead. And I thought it could go that way, but I kind of figured, no, I feel like there's probably going to be something else happening just based on the context of the show. And
it's Bradbury, and it feels like that's low-hanging fruit and very obvious.
So it made more sense that it like went in a weird direction rather than a like just there's somebody dealing with their afterlife. And although, I mean, it could be, you could take a version of that and just be like the after hours in the Twilight Zone, where you have somebody who's dead and the dead are coming to collect them and they don't know they're dead. And that's terrifying. Sort of like the woman who's the mannequin in the after hours. Like that. I could see that being an interesting story, but this was a little bit more nuanced, I guess, and less overdone.
Yeah. And I think all the points you made, I agree 100%, but that's exactly why I think this is so strong. Number one, I love the production design. I like just the look, the feel, like Huw, you mentioned earlier, the neon,
the 80s music,
the 80s. Yeah. Actually, if I have any knock at all on this is especially the score type music they use. Normally, I obviously don't mind more electric synth, but I didn't love the music in this as much, but that's like a second.
You noticed it, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, and not in a good way. Like it wasn't like that's cool. I like that riff. No, kind of like even that was my favorite part, other than those two little moments in the Hammer House of Horrors, was the intro and outro, and the way that little theme music was. I actually liked that. But this one, it was almost like the inverse. Like I liked everything else about it, but I didn't love the music. But that being said, to Allison's point, one of the things that jumped out at me was because we get this main character who has this driving narrative goal, right? We know just enough about him. We get hints of his past. We get hints of his character without excessive exposition. And because of that, that's what it leaves you wanting more. It's like afterwards, I'm thinking about this show. I'm like, oh, cool. Because it wasn't like it was confusing. Like, well, wait a minute. Why would you, it was nothing like that. It's just, it leaves you with questions, but that's not a bad thing when it's not confusion, is it, that kind of thing.
What I thought, because it makes you wonder about crowds. Because normally you get a little crowd with accidents. Yeah, sure. But that's you normally just see one accident. It's not like you see accidents all over the place. But had it been like this, and you started noticing, wait a minute, that's the same person, and then with the same clothing and everything. And when you start noticing that, I'm going to check that out. If I see an accident scene, I'm going to notice the crowds now, because I want to see if are there people, or I don't know, life suckers, soul eaters, vampires, even you could call them, because they suck the air from.
Yeah, but isn't that that's interesting, because what's the old thing about when someone is in an accident or they've passed out or whatever, they've collapsed, everyone gathers around, they're always like, back up, give them some air. That's what people always say.
I like the whispering, the talk, and the way she's breathing. Back up, like let him breathe. It's creepy as all get up.
There's one of the things that struck me was the two guys, first of all, drinking champagne together in the afternoon. So you just think, okay, that's different.
Drinking?
Yeah, it's like, okay, champagne, fair enough. It's somebody's earning the big bucks. But those moments where those faces in that crowd there is something really, really sinister about that. That the fact that they're not really doing a massive amount. They're not grabbing, they're not poking, they're not clawing. And that sort of the layering, the soundscape of where they said, give him air, get back. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And you can see him when he's backing away and he's almost sort of swamped by the crowd and just pops out the other end. Yeah. And then they just move off.
Yeah.
And there's they don't run. They just walk off.
Yeah.
And it's, where are they going? Where have they come from? How it's very, very clever.
Yeah.
In how simple it is.
Yeah.
And that's an art form in itself. It's just being able to create something that is so simple, but is so layered and so clear. It's very well done.
And I think because they didn't, the problem that when we talked about the house that bled to death, the Hammer one, was that it was a 50-minute episode, and it felt like it was meant to be a movie that they tried to shove into a 50-minute episode, a feature-length movie. This felt like a short film that they intended to be based on a short story that had a simple, straightforward idea, and that is what it focused on. That's the best short films, right? The ones that have that clear, like focused, narrow goal. Like what if when you look into like short filmmaking, obviously Huw, you know quite a bit about this as well. It's that the strongest short films are the ones that have that clarity and that focus, and the simpler you can make it. But you have like all these strings, and you're basically trying to do a glorified feature, but you make it an hour long. You might as well hit that extra 10 to 20 minutes and flush things out.
There's an art to making a short film like this, where you still have, because we have a lot of information and a lot of stuff basically happening, but it doesn't feel crowded to.
Yay!
So I mean, because you even get where he procures the photos from the morgue.
Yeah,
it was just that guy's in the crowd. He's dead. She's dead, and that's why that one. And then so you still get a lot of movie in a little short film without it feeling like you're just ladling stuff into it. So I like that.
Yeah,
I
mean, like for sure, probably lots of people you will know this, but like some of the best, short films, some of the best ones work as the 1-2 punch.
Mm-hmm. It's like a joke. They work like a joke. Yeah.
It's like an extended gag, and that works really, really well. Or you can go down the completely a less set up punchline moment. You get this kind of you sort of have this encased little story that runs just in a very, very specific period of time in a very, very specific place, and this kind of is able to sort of tread a very, very fine line between the two of them without it becoming confusing. And I think some of that is down obviously to the fact that Bradbury is an incredible writer. But like Ralph L. Thomas, who's the director in this, does an amazing job, because he's he keeps it tight, he keeps it quick, and he keeps it moving, and that is so hard. Yeah, because it could have meandered. It could have, at any point, it could have gone, oop, and they'd spent too long on that, and then it slows it all down.
Well, to your point, like for instance, Peter, you brought up the morgue pictures. They never showed him procure those. But it totally worked. I never once went, well, where did those come from? How did they did it in such a way with the setup?
His friend asked that question, though.
Yeah. He has. I mean, obviously, this guy's got connections, right? Yeah. That's to say, they just give the way, because it begins where he's leaving this sort of what appears to be some kind of high end party. The guy's driving a fancy.
Yeah. And don't drink and drive, by the way, because that's what he really the best he does.
Movie, actually, or the show. But ultimately, the way they just pepper these little things in, you don't question it, and it just works. And we don't, because how many things you got to have the character like going down to the morgue and paying off the guy and getting. We didn't need to see all that. We saw his friend bring up all the tapes and kind of the semi-comical moment,
which is when I made the note of, couldn't you have brought a box for all the tapes? It's just like, here. And then,
yeah. I think
funny.
It was funny. I think the big thing that I just felt like this show and this episode, and I'm presuming it's the rest of the show, which makes me absolutely want to watch it, is that wonderful realization that the filmmakers, the storytellers behind the scenes treat their audience with respect, and they believe that you are capable as an intelligent human being to watch this, fill in any gaps, come up with your own. It's you filling in the story that makes the story rich. It's you filling in the gaps that Bradbury intentionally left. Like you said, Allyson, you're wondering like, where is this? What? So you get to have that participatory contribute. You get to contribute. You get to add something with your own imagination, which is what makes something like this work so well. The other thing, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, I love that only once that I can think of does one of the characters say the other character's name, because I am so over the Huw. Why are you going in there, Huw?
Well, Joel, don't go down there, Peter.
Huw. Your name 50 times, because I'm not. It's not like in real life. Yes, we might say, "Hey, man, how's it going?" But at the end of the day, I know who you are. You know who I am. We don't really need to say each other's name other than because we would think the audience is too stupid to remember the character name. And when he works it in, the one time his friend was Morgan, right?
Yes.
Morgan was the friend.
Yeah.
Morgan says Joe, I think one time, and it's when Joe goes to run, because Joe just bolts to go see what's going on downstairs because he recognizes the people, the crowd forming, and he's like, Joe, like, I could see that. You would yell after your friend. Like, hey,
that's completely normal. Yeah.
Normal. And I think he says Morgan, the only time I can remember, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think he says his friend Morgan's name towards the end. And again, it's because it's a much more dramatic moment. And so I guess what I'm just saying is like, it was wonderful. Like, just you don't have to say everything. You don't have to explain everything.
It does the classic thing of showing, not telling.
Yes.
It shows and not tell. And
yes, Huw and Joel, that's exactly what they mean. And I think me, Peter, and Allyson agrees to Huw and Joel's.
Allyson, do you agree, Allyson?
What happens if I don't?
Okay, I'm fine with that too. One thing I hope I always come across is I want a diversity of opinion by all means.
But it's it's sort of. I was listening to Mick Garris talking. I can't remember who he was with, but they were talking about Plan 9. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that sort of makes Plan 9 from Outer Space just
great movie, just
genius, is the fact that everybody has massive exposition dumps.
Yeah.
Throughout, and you get a different film every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You get and again, it's that sort of everybody has to keep using everybody's name. Everybody has to keep explaining everything.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what we've got here is the complete opposite. That the film, they don't need to explain anything. Nope. They're, like you said, they're treating the audience with respect to say, well, you're watching this, you're invested in the characters. Mm-hmm. We've got a really well-made episode here. You just follow it. You just go with it. And it's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and I think the very fact that you're using Plan 9 is your example. Yeah. Whereas Plan 9, we all know what it is. We go in expecting that, and that's part of its charm. The problem I have, especially with a lot of modern media, is that they'll spend $200 million on something, except for the friggin' script. Right? I'm not saying all it does is prove money has nothing to do with it. That it's if you don't take the time to. The first and foremost thing should always be the script, the story. And if you get that right, then you're golden, in my opinion. I mean, obviously execution is what it is. And sometimes execution doesn't always match up with how good the script is. But if you've got a fantastic script, even if the execution's kind of meh, it can still rise above just because it's such a good.
The fact that you mentioned fantastic script and Plan 9 from Outer Space, more or less in the same sentence, is just weird. But
yes,
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, we have, I think, way back when we did Spooky Flix Fest, where we had the doll theme, we were supposed to, because we had a couple of TV episodes there too that we talked about. I think we were talking about doing one from Ray Bradbury Theater too. That
Drew Barrymore, was it Drew Barrymore? Was it or no? I'm thinking something else.
We never did that episode, but it was like it had kind of like a Russian name. I don't remember the episode's name now, but that was from Ray Bradbury Theater too, and I have seen it. I have seen actually a couple of episodes from this because they showed it on one of the channels over here. So
I think I know what you're talking about, and I don't remember the exact name, but it is about a doll, and I haven't seen the Ray Bradbury
only
version.
There was a device,
but there is a Twilight Zone episode with the same name, so I'm kind of wondering if it's the same story.
Well, they could have based it on Bradbury's story. Yeah.
I think so actually. Yeah. Ray,
well, that's the other thing. Okay, you're right now. You're frozen, like you're scratching your ear. So keep doing whatever you're doing, Peter. It's hilarious.
Pauses.
Yeah. It would be great if he suddenly just moved and we realized he was. There. See, this is why you want to see the video version, so you can see Peter freeze in various odd ways. But yeah, I think actually, I'm glad you brought up Twilight Zone. I feel like I really want to watch the rest of the Ray Bradbury Theater because I think that's the quality of storytelling you're going to get with this show. I could be wrong, but I feel like based on this one episode alone, that's the level, the caliber that we're going to get.
Yeah.
Wow, I remember that one. Oh, sorry.
One of the things that I do love is that when we had these sort of like, people forget that the Twilight Zone made a comeback in the 80s, and actually some of those episodes was really good, really solid, and like and obviously I'm just discovering Ray Bradbury Theater. I was aware of it, but obviously I'm quite interested now in actually getting stuck in a little bit more to it.
Yeah,
but it's such. I mean, they resurrected the Twilight Zone with what's his name?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peele, and he was missing something.
Yeah,
they was missing something, and I think the one thing that he was missing was the quality of the writing. And again, it goes back to that story. It didn't have that sort of that Rod Serling feel to it. It didn't have that Bradbury feel to it. It didn't have the likes of Richard Matheson and those absolute geniuses. Working on it. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that sort of. Oh, what is it, Peter?
Yeah, Peter, don't leave us hanging.
And so died Ria Boshinska.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a creepy looking doll.
That's redundant.
Yeah.
It's a doll. Oh, by the way, you can't see it, Allyson, but standing on my cabinet right above my clown is the vampire baby doll thing you sent me.
Oh, is she behaving?
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I don't. What's great is I had my kids set out all the Halloween decorations the other day because I was in the middle of doing stuff. I was like, all right, guys, I'm gonna leave it to you. Set them all out, and she was still in the tub. I wanted to save her for Halloween. Although I think I'm just gonna leave her now because you gave it to me before I had the whole video store thing. So I'm gonna
know something.
What's that?
I actually knew she sent it to you before you did it right.
Yeah, that was so awesome. But I thought it was very telling. So I put her up on the top of the display case, and none of them have said anything yet. So I don't know if they've even noticed. And I'm just gonna leave her there, from now. Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah.
I think she's kind of given off a slight Dark Shadows vibe, which
she does.
Her outfit is from that era for sure.
Yes. You know what? Hold on. It's freaking Halloween. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves. Hold on.
What's on in the background?
Here we go.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. This is so Allyson, knowing my phobia of dolls, I'm sure there's a technical name for it. She sends me the vampire doll. Actually, it's really beautiful the way she did it. Yeah.
Those blood touches.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you could see it on the what it says. Warning, sometimes I bite. Yeah, my kids did not find that amusing, though I did.
You need to sort of walk into the house one day and say, "Who's been playing with the doll? Who's been moving it? Why?"
That's yeah.
I have a Mortimer Snurd ventriloquist dummy, and he used to scare. Well, so quick short story. I see Devil Doll, the one with Hugo, they use like a little person and it had like a paper mache head. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a 1960s. Okay. I saw it when I was 4 years old on Creature Feature. Terrified me to no end. Cut to 2 Christmases later, 1982. For Christmas, my parents get me a Mortimer Snurd doll.
Nope.
Why? Like, I never asked for that. I do not remember going, "Hey, Mom and Dad, you remember I was traumatized like a year and a half ago? Please get me this."
Those are the best gifts, the ones that you don't ask for.
And then what I love is my mom, as I grew up, like, "Joel, why do you like the things you like? Why do you the horror? I don't get the horror thing, Joel. Really? Do you not get it?" So anyway, so I would hide him in my closet, like bound the doors together because I was sure he was going to kill me. Especially after my sister tore his foot off and my mom had to sew it back on. I was a dead man. He was killing me. But I still have him. And so I set him out one time when I didn't tell my kids. And then they're like, "Dad, you're not leaving that out there, are you?" It's like, I got it kind of, guys. He's been bunched up in a trunk for years.
He needs to breathe.
And what I would do is I would just move him just a little bit. Like every couple days, I would turn his head just a little bit, move his arm. And they're like, "Dad, what are you doing?" I was like, "What? I didn't do it." And of course, I can do a great straight face for about 10 seconds, but if they keep me going, I'll start to laugh. So
I put one of the dolls that one of my daughters got. It's still here somewhere. It's from an animated feature. I don't remember her name. Elsa. I don't know.
Oh,
from
from Frozen.
No, that's terrifying enough. No, son of a bitch. Never mind. Anyway,
Okay.
what I did with it was I put it around strategically around different places in the house. And the best part is when I put it inside one of the cabinets. So when they open it, it was like this. And I heard the scream. And
it was like what, Peter? Because you were frozen.
oh, it went like it was standing right in front of them like this.
You froze again. That was perfect.
Yeah. So
Great.
that was a fun little period for the kids.
I bet it was. All right. Well, so I guess that we all agree the crowd was great. Is that a safe assumption?
It is actually a very eerie, creepy episode because the whole setup it's like when the crowd arrives, it's like in silence, and then you hear them kind of talk very softly. It's no screaming or anything. It's very softly, or let her breathe, or there's another, stand back. It's all, and the stares and the faces and everything. And I think it's the old man who talks to him, isn't it?
Yes.
Something about why are you here or something.
Does the big guy say something to him too?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but he mutters something because he pushes him, doesn't he? And then
he's
the one who's silhouetted in the in the alley.
And by the way, you noticed, and I'm assuming it was just a trick of the light with the snow, but it almost looked like only it was like the snow was in front of him, but it almost like looked weirdly like it was like some 80s version of electricity or something running through his arms. But I think it was just the lighting on the snow only highlighted that area.
Yeah,
and
I noticed that too.
It was weird. It was unsettling. Yeah. No, I thought this was great. I loved it. I'm so glad. Of the three, this is by far my favorite. And I will absolutely be watching the rest of these because I thought they were stand out for sure.
Yeah. It's Ray Bradbury.
Yeah. All right. Well, then on that note, for this bonus episode, that we had the wonderful Allyson. What shows? What else are you on, Allyson? Where can they find you on the interwebs?
You smart
I don't know.
Whatever do you mean, Joel?
This one
you may not want to admit
on
it.
the tube.
yeah. I was gonna say you may not want to actually admit that in public, but yeah, go ahead. Yes. Of course, you can find you on Terror on the Tube. Oh, of course,
and also
Haunted Davenport.
Mm-hmm.
I know, yeah.
Because we can still listen to it.
You can still listen to the Haunted Davenport. Yeah, we haven't done an episode since last Halloween, although last year we did cover the Midnight Hour. And speaking of Ray Bradbury, we covered the Halloween tree. So if you're interested in that, you can go to thehaunteddavenport.com or find us on Apple Podcasts and check that out.
So one of the last didn't you do Rose Red too? Like one of the last episodes?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Did that hold up for you?
Okay.
I don't remember.
It's campy, but it's fun and creepy in some good ways. There's the set design is really fun.
Yeah.
You know what? I definitely have a serious hate on for the Haunting remake that came out in like 99.
Yes, I hate that movie.
I saw that in the theater and
Me
I feel
too.
I feel like this does all the things that was trying to do better. It's not amazing, but it's fun. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like some of the Stephen King slightly funny
Langoliers.
Like,
remember Langoliers?
Oh, Langoliers. I
it's been a long time since I've seen that one. That one made me laugh really hard. I always kind of enjoy Tommy Knockers. Just
Tommy Knockers.
Tracy Lords and her lipstick, and just the poem. And there's it's like it rides that border between creepy and funny for me, which Stephen King does a lot for me. Like I'll just be like, this is hilarious, but this is also really disturbing.
Exactly. With the Langoliers, it's the story itself, the novel is really, really good.
Yeah.
And it's hard to put that on film,
especially with 1990s CGI.
I feel like it could use another pass.
Meatballs with teeth. What was wrong with that?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong. I enjoyed that, and I like Tommy Knockers too, but because the stories are good. But I don't know. but I enjoy Langoliers. I enjoy Tommy Knockers too. So yeah.
Well, Rose Red I haven't seen since it originally aired.
It's
So-
been a minute and 5
Yeah,
hours.
I remember like not hating it or anything. I just don't remember loving it. That's
It's
the only
not
thing.
amazing, but if you like haunted houses, like say maybe you're a fan of like the Winchester Mystery House, or you're
I have a friend who's been there.
a fan of the original Haunting, and you're willing to take there's a little hammy in parts, but
Yeah. Okay.
it's also good. It's fun. There's just like the house itself, the design for it.
Yeah,
is
I remember
pretty
that.
cool.
That's like the main thing I remember is the house being very cool. Yeah, very cool. All right, Huw. I wonder where we could find you. Don't look behind him. Don't look behind him.
It's such an ever so subtle hint.
Product placement. Our corporate sponsor for this episode is Huw and the Undead Wookiee podcast.
Yeah, so you can find me lurking over at my show over on the Undead Wookiee. Been a little bit all over the place with schedule because there's been like hundreds of things going on, and sort of I've been writing for online magazine morbidlybeautiful.com, so you can hear my witterings in writing over there. And I've just finished off a short story piece for an anthology series that's coming out, which has been hilarious because I spend most of my life telling young people they need to make sure that they're not leaving things to the last minute. And in the long tradition of all education, you're just thinking, why did I leave this to the last minute?
Been there, done that.
So there's a lot going on. So you can find out. We got an episode with Peter was the last one that we put out. We've got a couple nice ones coming out. We've got one with Bill coming out. We're talking about the video nasties.
Bill Van Vagel.
Yeah, the big man himself.
Cool.
Canada's greatest export next to Brian Adams.
And Lou, who's been on our show. Yeah, I got at least 2 Canadian exports that I.
So we're talking about the video nasties.
Cool.
And we're rating our top 5, or we think would be a good gateway into the video nasties and the section 1 films. And we talk a little bit about the history of the video nasties in the UK, because it's a fascinating period of history.
It's actually a movie in itself.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised it hasn't been done, but
although spoiler alert, the lesson is, the final reveal is censorship sucks.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, pretty much. We're adults. We can use our
thumb. I can handle things. Thanks, Mom.
Off.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So yeah,
we really need to dig into our list too. So.
Oh yeah, and I mean, me and Peter have been sort of trying to chip away at the scroll of things that we need to cover, but it's just getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we have a rummage around in Peter's box is what we sort of call it.
Whoa!
Hi-yo!
Took a turn.
Oh yeah,
it did. All right, so then find these wonderful people at their respective shows. Obviously, Allyson, that's sort of self-serving for me to say that. And Peter and I also tear the tube. And Peter shows up on the Undead Wookiee, as he alluded to. And when he's not being frozen during a stream, he can be found, obviously, at Retro Movie Geek. I can be found some of those places, most of those places, whatever. And, of course, Jay and the Dead's New Horror Movies and Mom and Pop Video Shop, where you can see the video version of this episode. So on that final note, thank you one and all. Have a happy Halloween.
Thank you for listening. Get all the spookiness you can handle this October by subscribing to Mom and Pop Video Shop on YouTube. You can also find Retro Movie Geek on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you dig up your podcasts. The spooktastic music you heard at the beginning and end of this episode was provided courtesy of Ed and Gavin and their band, Midnight Syndicate. We want to thank them for the use of music from their albums Gates of Delirium and The 13th Hour. Want to sink your ghostly claws into this and all Midnight Syndicate's beautifully macabre music? Then go to midnightsyndicate.com. And remember, spooky is as spooky does.